Sometimes the smallest objects hold the biggest secrets. A piece of jewelry, a photograph, a key. But what happens when a maid cleaning a billionaire's mansion recognizes something she was never supposed to see? What happens when 3 whispered words unravel a mystery that's been hidden for 25 years? This is a true story about identity, loss, and the incredible way the universe brings people together. Maria Santos had been cleaning houses in Los Angeles for 17 years. She was 42 years old, a single mother of 2, and one of the most dependable employees at Elite Home Services, a company that catered to the wealthy neighborhoods of Beverly Hills and Bel Air. Maria took pride in her work. She wasn't just a cleaner, she was a professional. She noticed details. She respected people's privacy. She showed up early and never left a job half done. But Maria carried a weight that most people never saw. 25 years ago, when Maria was just 17, her younger sister Sophia disappeared. They were living in a small town outside of San Diego. Maria had walked Sophia to school that morning, just like always. Sophia was 12, bright-eyed, wearing the silver pendant their grandmother had given her, a delicate hummingbird with tiny turquoise stones. "I'll see you after school," Sophia had said, waving goodbye. She never came home. The police searched for weeks, months. The case went cold. No body was ever found. No answers ever came. Their mother died 5 years later, some say from a broken heart. And Maria spent the next 2 decades carrying a question that had no answer. What happened to Sophia? She wore an identical pendant every single day. The matching one their grandmother had given her. It was the only connection she had left to her sister. On a Tuesday morning in March, Maria was assigned to a new client. The address was in Bel Air, a massive estate behind iron gates, the kind of home that looked like it belonged in a magazine. The owner was Thomas Whitmore, a tech billionaire who'd made his fortune in software security. He was 52, recently divorced, and according to the service notes, he was very private and preferred minimal interaction. Perfect. Maria preferred to work in peace anyway. The housekeeper who usually worked there had quit suddenly, and Maria was filling in until they found a permanent replacement. Thomas greeted her briefly at the door, tall, graying at the temples, with tired eyes that suggested he didn't sleep much. He gave her a quick tour and instructions, then disappeared into his home office. Maria began her work on the 2nd floor, dusting, vacuuming, changing linens. Everything was immaculate and expensive, but somehow the house felt empty, like a beautiful shell with no soul inside. She was cleaning the main bedroom when she noticed the photograph on the nightstand. A family photo. Thomas, much younger, maybe in his late 20s. A beautiful woman with dark hair. And between them, a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, with the brightest smile Maria had ever seen. But it was what the little girl was wearing that made Maria's hands freeze. A silver pendant. A hummingbird with tiny turquoise stones. Identical to the one around Maria's neck. Maria's heart pounded so hard she thought she might collapse. It couldn't be. These pendants were handmade by their grandmother in Mexico. Custom pieces. There were only 2 in the world. One around Maria's neck. One that disappeared with Sophia 25 years ago. Her hands trembling, Maria picked up the photograph to look closer. The little girl's face. The eyes, the smile. Could it be? Maria set the photo down carefully, her mind racing. She needed to think, to breathe. This was probably a coincidence. Maybe someone else made similar pendants. Maybe that's my daughter. Maria jumped. Thomas stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Whitmore," Maria stammered. "I wasn't snooping, I was just dusting and—" "It's all right," he said quietly, stepping into the room. He picked up the photograph, staring at it like he'd memorized every pixel. Her name was Lily. This was taken a week before she died. Maria felt tears spring to her eyes. "I'm so sorry for your loss." Thomas nodded, his jaw tight. "Car accident, 20 years ago. She was 7. My ex-wife, never recovered. Neither did I, really." He set the photo down and turned to leave. Maria knew she should stay silent, mind her business, but something deeper than logic was screaming at her. "Mr. Whitmore," she heard herself whisper, "your pendant, my sister has the same one." Thomas froze in the doorway. "What did you say?" Maria's voice shook as she reached up and pulled out her own pendant from beneath her shirt. "This pendant, my grandmother made 2 of them. One for me, one for my younger sister. She disappeared 25 years ago. She was wearing this pendant the day she vanished." Thomas turned slowly, his face pale. His eyes locked onto Maria's pendant, then shot back to the photograph. That's impossible," he breathed. "May I ask," Maria said carefully, "where did your daughter get her pendant?" Thomas stood very still. When he spoke, his voice was barely audible. "Lily was adopted. We adopted her when she was 5, from a private agency in San Diego. She came with very few belongings. That pendant was one of them. She never took it off." The room spun around Maria. San Diego, 5 years old. That would mean— "Mr. Whitmore, when was your daughter born?" Thomas's eyes were wide now, understanding beginning to dawn. "July 14th, according to her records, but the agency said the records were incomplete. They didn't have much information about her biological family." Maria's knees gave out. She sat down hard on the edge of the bed. July 14th, Sophia's birthday. "My sister," Maria whispered, "disappeared when she was 12. But she was small for her age, malnourished. She could have passed for younger, and if someone took her—" Thomas sat down too, looking like he might be sick. "The adoption agency," he said slowly. "It was closed down 3 years after we adopted Lily. Federal investigation. They'd been falsifying documents, trafficking children under the guise of legal adoptions." For a moment, neither of them could speak. What happened next moved like lightning. Thomas made phone calls to lawyers, to private investigators, to contacts he had in law enforcement. Maria called her adult children, her voice breaking as she told them what she'd discovered. Within 48 hours, they had DNA samples sent to a lab that specialized in familial matches. The wait was excruciating. 5 days that felt like 5 years. Thomas and Maria met every day during that wait. At first, it was just to share information, old photographs, documents, memories. But slowly, they began to piece together the horrifying truth. Sophia hadn't run away. She'd been taken from a park near her school by a woman who'd been watching her for weeks. The woman had been part of an illegal adoption ring that targeted vulnerable children from poor immigrant families, children they thought no one would fight for. Sophia had been moved across state lines, her age falsified, her identity erased. She was given the name Lily and placed with Thomas and his then wife through the corrupt agency. Thomas showed Maria videos of Lily, home movies, birthday parties, Christmas mornings. Maria watched through tears as she saw her sister, her baby sister, growing up in a world she never knew existed, loved and cared for by parents who had no idea They'd been part of a crime. She was happy, Thomas said quietly, as they watched a video of 7-year-old Lily blowing out birthday candles. I need you to know that. We loved her with everything we had. I can see that, Maria whispered. Thank you for loving her when I couldn't. When the DNA results came back, Thomas called Maria immediately. She arrived at his mansion within 20 minutes, her heart hammering so hard she could barely drive. Thomas met her at the door. His eyes were red. It's a match, he said, his voice breaking. Lily was Sophia. Maria collapsed into his arms, and they stood in the doorway, holding each other up, two people who'd lost the same girl in different ways, united by impossible grief and impossible truth. For hours they sat together, looking through photographs and videos. Maria told stories about young Sophia, how she loved to sing, how she collected rocks, how she wanted to be a veterinarian. Thomas shared memories of Lily, her love of drawing, her kindness to every animal she met, her bright, infectious laugh. They were talking about the same person, the same beautiful soul who'd been ripped from one family and given to another through cruelty and greed. I have to tell you something, Thomas said finally, something I've never told anyone. Maria waited. The day Lily died, she asked me about her birth family. She was 7, and she'd started asking questions about where she came from. I told her we'd look into it together when she was older. I promised her. His voice cracked. 20 minutes later, a drunk driver ran a red light, and I never got to keep that promise. Maria took his hand. She knew you loved her. That's what matters. But you didn't get to love her, Thomas said, tears streaming down his face. That was stolen from you, and I benefited from that theft, even though I didn't know it. What happened next surprised everyone. Thomas and Maria didn't go their separate ways. They became family. Thomas invited Maria's children, Sophia's niece and nephew, who never got to meet her, to the mansion. He showed them videos of their aunt as a little girl, shared stories, gave them photographs. Maria brought pictures of young Sophia, the sister Thomas's daughter had been before she was taken. The gap-toothed 6-year-old, the baby in their grandmother's arms. Together, they created a complete picture of one extraordinary girl who lived 2 different lives. Thomas did more than that. He used his resources to reopen the investigation into the adoption agency that had destroyed so many families. His lawyers worked pro bono to help other families who suspected their adoptions might have been illegal. They found 12 other cases, 12 other children who'd been stolen and sold under false pretenses. 8 were still alive, 5 were reunited with their biological families. Maria quit working for the cleaning service, not because Thomas offered her money, though he did, and she refused it. She quit because Thomas asked her to help him run a new foundation he was creating, the Sophia Lily Foundation, dedicated to finding missing children and supporting families torn apart by trafficking. Maria became the director. She worked from an office in Thomas's home, and together they turned their shared grief into purpose. 2 years after that whispered sentence in the bedroom, Maria and Thomas stood together at a memorial they'd created in Thomas's garden. A beautiful statue of a hummingbird, wings spread wide, made from silver and turquoise. Beneath it, a plaque read, Sophia Maria Santos, Lily Rose Whitmore, July 14, 1983, March 22, 2003, loved by 2 families, lost to both, forever remembered. Do you think she knows? Maria asked quietly. that we found each other?" Thomas was quiet for a long moment. "I think she sent you to me. I think she knew that pendant would lead you to the truth. Call it fate, call it God, call it whatever you want. But that wasn't coincidence." Maria touched her pendant, the one she'd worn every day for 25 years, never knowing it would be the key to unlocking everything. "I spent 2 decades wondering what happened to her," Maria said, imagining the worst, never knowing if she suffered, if she was scared, if she was alone. "She wasn't alone," Thomas said firmly, "and she wasn't scared. She was loved, Maria. She was happy. Those 7 years we had with her, she was happy." "Then I'm grateful," Maria whispered. "Grateful you found her. Grateful you gave her the childhood I couldn't. Grateful that she knew love, even if it wasn't my love." Thomas put his arm around Maria's shoulders. "It was your love, just delivered through different hands." Today, the Sophia Lilly Foundation has helped reunite 47 families with missing loved ones. Maria still works there, alongside Thomas. His children from his first marriage call her Aunt Maria. Her grandchildren call him Uncle Thomas. They built a family from tragedy, found purpose in pain, turned a whispered sentence into a movement that's changing lives. But here's what Maria wants you to know. She almost didn't say anything. She almost kept quiet that day in the bedroom, almost convinced herself it was just a coincidence, almost minded her own business and walked away. One whisper, 3 words. "My sister has the same one." That's all it took to change everything. How many of us see something, notice something, feel something in our gut, telling us to speak up, and then we silence ourselves? How many connections are we missing because we're too afraid to say the thing that feels crazy? Maria had every reason to stay quiet. She was a maid in a billionaire's home. It wasn't her place. It was too strange, too unlikely. But she whispered anyway, and that whisper unlocked 25 years of unanswered questions. It brought 2 grieving people together. It created a foundation that's bringing families home. All because one woman trusted her instinct and spoke 3 words. What is your pendant? What's the thing you notice, the connection you feel, the truth you're too scared to speak? You never know what your whisper might unlock, what healing it might bring, what family it might reunite, what destiny it might fulfill. Sophia didn't get to live the life she should have, but her story, her pendant, is still changing the world. Because one woman was brave enough to whisper, be that person, notice, care, speak. Your whisper might be exactly what someone needs to hear. If this story touched your heart, please share it. The Sophia Lilly Foundation is real, and they need our support. Subscribe for more incredible true stories that prove that coincidences are just miracles in disguise. And remember, when your gut tells you to speak, whisper.